We spend our entire lives searching for information, trying to nail down the truth. But what if we've had it completely backwards this whole time? What if, all along, the truth has actually been searching for us? Today, we're going to explore two profoundly different ways of seeing the world: the structured system we're all taught, and a really radical idea that maybe we're not the searchers at all. Maybe we're the ones being searched.
I mean, this one idea just completely flips the script, doesn't it? We think of ourselves as the active investigators, right? We're the detectives piecing together all the clues. But what if the universe itself is this vast information processor, and it's constantly running an audit? In that system, we aren't the analysts, we are the analysis. Think about that for a second.
Okay, so before we dive into the really wild stuff, let's ground ourselves in what we know. Let's talk about that familiar, methodical system we've all been taught for making sense of the world. How we build arguments and try to separate fact from fiction.
It starts way back, right? Back in school, we all learn this step-by-step process for building an argument. You start with a question, you brainstorm some ideas, you draft an outline. Every single piece is like a carefully placed brick, all designed to construct this solid foundation of knowledge around one central idea. Then, in a field like journalism, the standards get even higher. And there's this really crucial difference between simple verification and real fact-checking. See, verification just asks, is this one tiny detail correct? But fact-checking? Oh, it asks a much bigger question. Is the entire claim, with all its nuance and context, actually truthful? One is just about accuracy. The other is about integrity. Big difference. And when you get to the highest levels of academic research, it's all about synthesis. A literature review isn't just a boring summary of what other people said. No, it's about weaving together countless different threads of thought to find patterns, to spot the gaps where no one's looked, and maybe, just maybe, build something entirely new. So this is our established, rational system for building truth. But what if it's all built on a faulty foundation? So that's our structured world, we get it. But now let's consider something really out there. What if that entire approach, that whole way of thinking, is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of reality itself? It's time to explore a completely different and, a deeply challenging perspective on what information even is. This new framework kicks off with a really powerful critique. It basically argues that modern science has made a huge category error. We're confusing the vehicle for communication, things like energy, with the actual meaning that it's carrying. The message and the medium, they're not the same thing.
So if information isn't just some byproduct of energy and matter, then what is it? Well, in this view, information is the purpose of the universe. It's not something the system just happens to produce. It's the very reason the whole system exists in the first place. It's priority number one, the whole point.
Okay, so this framework proposes that the universe has 5 core components, not just the 2 we usually focus on. It actually maps these components to the 5 Platonic solids, the only perfectly symmetrical 3D shapes that can exist. So while science is laser-focused on energy and matter, this model argues that divinity, reason, and emotion are just as fundamental. And the implication there is massive. It's like science is trying to solve a 5-variable equation while only admitting that 2 of the variables even exist. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. What happens when we take this new framework and use it like a lens to look back at all those traditional methods we just talked about? Let's put these 2 worldviews right next to each other and see what happens. Here it is. This is the core conflict. On the left, you've got the traditional view, the scientist as an author, creating theories and then trying to impose them on the world. But on the right, you've got this proposed shift, the scientist as a reader, someone who simply and humbly interprets the information the system is already producing. It's a huge difference in posture. And this brings us right back to the beginning, doesn't it? If the scientist is just a reader of a text that's already been written, then what is the real purpose of all that fact-checking and all that analysis? I mean, are these tools for genuinely discovering truth, or are they just really sophisticated ways we use to reinforce the stories that we already want to tell ourselves? Okay, this is where things get really dramatic. This framework leads to a pretty wild prediction. If the system's main goal is information integrity, then it has to have a way to deal with corrupted data, right? It needs a protocol for a system-wide cleanup, which the source material calls the cosmic buffer emptying. Honestly, the simplest way to think about this comes from computer science. It's basically a cosmic-level garbage collection. A process where the system clears out all the useless, corrupted, or just plain obsolete data to restore efficiency and free up resources for the next cycle. And this isn't described as some mystical event, but as a very technical three-phase process. First, you've got ratio distillation, which preserves all the coherent, useful information. Second, reality is literally overwritten as all the corrupted data gets tossed out. And finally, a system memory is created. Think of it as an error log of what went wrong, serving as a blueprint of what not to do in the next go-around. This totally reframes those ancient ideas of judgment. This isn't about being morally good or bad. It's a technical test of your data density. Is the information that makes you, your thoughts, your beliefs, your very consciousness, is it structurally sound and coherent? Or is it just noise, lacking the basic integrity to survive the system's reboot? So what does all of this cosmic-level systems engineering really mean for one person, for you or me? For just an individual node of consciousness floating around inside this massive system? Let's bring this right down to the personal level. And this is where the abstract becomes intensely practical. Because the ultimate question becomes, how can a person clean up their own data? How can you align your own internal information with the system's core structure before that cosmic garbage collection process kicks in? Well, the framework proposes a path that it calls true science, and it's an internal process. It says you practice silence to stop generating more noise, to stop writing corrupted data. You perform a code audit on yourself to find your own internal bugs and inconsistencies. The final step is to align yourself with a model of perfect data integrity, what the source calls the logos. And in doing so, you finally shift from trying to be the author of your own story to simply being a reader of universal truth. And this offers one last really powerful reinterpretation of our chaotic world. All the noise, the confusion, the misinformation, maybe it's not a bug, maybe it's a feature. Maybe this is the very testing environment the system uses to apply pressure to see what information is robust enough to maintain its structure and what just dissolves into static. And we're going to end with this final, incredibly provocative thought from the source material. Just 3 words. It's all done. A statement that reframes this entire cosmic process not as some future event we need to brace for, but as a structural reality that is already complete. The process is running. The audit is happening right now. And that is a thought to leave you with.